we have to deal sometimes with weak colonies. And weak colonies can be so frustrating because, you get all ramped up to be a beekeeper. You take a class, you buy the equipment, the bee suit, all these stuff. You spend a lot of money. You're excited. You get your bees and you kind of have in your mind, nothing can go wrong. But all at once you realize, something went wrong and my bees are not strong and they're getting weak. And we have to wrestle with that. But let's talk about first, what causes a weak hive? Well, I think the big reason that a lot of hives are weak is because it's a poor queen. Now, a poor queen doesn't mean the queen is always bad. It could mean that the hive is so weak that the queen can't be fed well enough, or even the eggs she's laying, she might be laying a lot of good eggs, but the worker bees are following behind her, cannibalizing the eggs for protein. So we can't always point a finger and blame the queen, but that's the first place we're going to look. Is the queen failing? Do we have a lot of eggs, a lot of brood, a lot of larvae? This can cause the hive to go weak pretty fast. The other thing is low resources. That kind of works hand in hand with a poor queen. If the resources aren't there for the bees to feed the queen and take care of the larvae, the queen looks guilty. I mean, she's the one that takes the blame. She's the lightning rod of all problems in the hive. She gets blamed for everything. Oh, I got, some disease. That's because it's a bad queen. Oh, it didn't survive the winter. Got a bad queen. She gets blamed for everything. And it's really oftentimes, I'd say more often than not, her fault, but she gets blamed for it all. But low resources can make the queen look bad. If there's just not enough food for the bees to eat and feed her, then she can't perform and they can't take care of what she is laying. So sometimes you got to have good resources in the hive: pollen, nectar, honey, bee bread. Now, the third thing that can cause a weak colony, and this is especially true once they've kind of gotten really large. Sometimes beekeepers don't realize a large colony begins to weaken and they don't know it because it still looks large. I mean, look, if you have 60,000 bees and they start deteriorating population-wise down to 40,000, can you really tell that? It's kind of hard to tell sometimes. So sometimes the mites occur later on in July and August in great number, and the bees start weakening then, and the beekeeper just doesn't realize that unless you're doing mite counts, sampling your bees to see what kind of mite levels you have. So that can cause a hive to be weak. Now, another thing that can cause a hive to become weak is it can be overcrowded. And when it's overcrowded, it becomes bound by it's bound by, it's honey bound or it's brood bound. It's bound and it can't keep a good balance of resources and brood. You're going to have too much of one or the other. Too many bees, not enough food; too much food, not enough bees, and so on. So the way to deal with that is simply monitor and make sure they don't get too crowded. Well, the last thing I put down here is what can cause a hive to become weak, and it's bad weather. A hive can become weak in hot weather. Believe it or not, I did some research last week on what happens to bees when they get really hot. And if they get really hot, when it starts pushing over 100 degrees, then it actually affects a lot of things in the hive. It can affect the queen's stored sperm in her spermatheca can begin to deteriorate. So she may not be able to lay as much when she is suffering from being overheated by walking around in the hive. So bad weather could mean hot weather. Of course, bad weather could also mean rainy weather. A hive can't grow when it's raining outdoors. They're going to eat their resources. They don't have any incoming resources. So if you have a week of rainy weather, they're going to consume a lot of stuff inside the hive. They're not going to be bringing it in. So that's going to slow things down. Of course, the last thing that most of us are thinking of in bad weather is a bad winter. So if you have cold weather, a bad winter, we always fear that a hard winter is going to be hard on our bees. And that's not exactly accurate, because sometimes when it's about 30 to 40 degrees in the wintertime and it never gets really warm, never gets really cold, it stays right at about 30 or 40, the bees stay active. And I'm talking Fahrenheit. The bees stay very much more active when it's 30 to 40 plus degrees. but they can't go flying. They don't do anything except eat and burn up a lot of food. And so it's not so much the extreme cold weather that we're worried about. It's that weather that's kind of mild that we feel like it can hurt our bees. Well, let's talk about some of the things to deal with. Well, how do you know if you do have a weak hive? That's something that some people just don't understand. Like, I don't know if my hive's weak or not. What do I have to compare it to? If you have one hive, it is kind of hard to know. But I think the big telltale sign is if it's not really expanding very well. If you just don't see growth, either they're not pulling out frames, they're not drawing out comb, they're not expanding and brood, they're not, you don't see more and more frames of honey and resources in there, they're not expanding. And I know if you're new to beekeeping, it can be difficult to know exactly how do I determine what is acceptable in their expansion. How do I know this is okay, or is it too small? I know, I get that. It is hard to tell. Another sign is foraging activity. Now, this is important too, because if there are not a lot of foragers going in and out, that means they're weak. That means they're not bringing in enough resources. Now, one of the ways you can do this, if you've ever had a small hive, like maybe a 5-frame nucleus, or you made a split or something, you can see that smaller colony. You can compare what the foragers in number look like compared to a larger hive with 2 deeps and a super on it. You can see much more activity on a larger hive foraging than you do on that smaller hive. And the third thing is that sometimes if you do have more than one hive, you can compare it to the other hive and side-by-side comparison. You can say, oh my gosh, look at that hive. They're really going in and out a lot. They're expanding rapidly in their hive. They're drawing out comb. They're storing nectar. They're storing pollen. The other hive's not. So that's good if you're keeping more than one hive, you can kind of compare the two. And you can say that hive isn't keeping up with that other hive. So let's talk about some solutions. Well, one of the ways that I love solving a weak hive issue is by adding capped brood. And you can see in the picture here, you maybe pull out a frame in the middle or scoot it around, or however you want to checkerboard that brood area if you want to. But you can actually put another frame that has capped brood from a very strong colony. And that way those bees are going to emerge. And a lot of people kind of say, oh no, David, I'm concerned that if I do that, won't they kill the bees that are on that frame? Mostly I say, no, they won't. I do it over and over again. And I've even made videos where I do that and say, okay, let's look and see if anybody's fighting. Is there roaring or fighting? And they get along fine. And so a lot of times they're younger bees. They just don't really fight. There's brood. It meshes together. If you're just doing one frame, it really does work well for me. And I think later in the year, if you get down into the late summers or even fall and you try to do that, could be a little bit of an issue. But again, moving a frame over is how you strengthen a weak colony. Also, I said earlier, the queen always gets blamed, but in this case, if the queen is to blame and she's not picking up steam, then just get a new queen. And if you're in doubt, get a new queen. I've been making some videos of a hive that I'm not too happy about the queen yet, but we inspected it, made a video last week. She's picking up steam a little bit. So we're going to leave her in there and see if things get better. So adding resources is another way. Add a frame of honey. I made some frame manipulations last week trying to equalize my yards. Some are way prospering with a lot of brood or honey and all, and some maybe not as much. So I've been trying to equalize by moving these frames around. And so one of the frames I like to move around is a frame full of honey or pollen or nectar, whatever resources, to a hive that doesn't have as much as that one does. It helps both hives a lot. It gives a hive that's got a lot of resources room to actually put more brood in there, but it also allows a hive that doesn't have a lot of resources to have those resources. And of course, you got to deal with mites. Now, mites can really weaken a hive. Some people think mites only hurt a hive in the wintertime. That's not true at all. They can really hurt a hive in the season. And so you got to really stay after your mites, keep your mite levels low as possible. And the fifth thing I talk about a lot is that we need to keep feeding bees that are weak, because they need to turn your sugar with the additives in it. They need to metabolize that so they can make royal jelly, they can make wax to build comb, and they just need all of that, the resources. Since it's not in the comb, they don't have the foragers to bring it in. What you feed them is going to make all the difference in the world. And then the last slide here I want to share with you is let's talk about having more than one hive. Now here we have a hive and it got a little resource hive next to it. That resource hive is just what it says it is. Just a frame with brood and honey and a queen in there. And so if something goes wrong with the big hive, we can go over there to the little hive, which is a 5-frame nuke. We can pull out some resources and shore up the big hive. And so that's a good thing. Now, here's a phrase that you've heard me say before: 2 is 1 and 1 is none. And that means if you have one hive and something happens and it dies and perishes, then you don't have any hives at all. But if you have 2 hives and one goes bad, then you're still a beekeeper. You have 1 hive. So additional hives is what gives you the advantage, the upper hand, to share resources to support and back up, bolster up those weak colonies. So I don't think it's hard at all for a beekeeper to have 2 hives. I mean, if you already have 1 hive, you're going to be lighting your smoker, you're going to have a hive tool, you're going to be putting your hat and veil on. What difference does it make if you're going to look and have 2 hives? I understand there's a point when 10 hives or 20 or 50 is going to be more work. 2 hives, not really that much more work for the advantages that you have in having 2 hives. So those are my tips today, friends. There I am. So it maximizes your efforts on dealing with your weak hives. It really doesn't take long at all to turn a hive around from its weak point until it's kind of really prospering again. But do keep in mind, it takes about 21 days from the egg until you have those eggs hatching as adult bees. And so it is going to take a month. So don't think that the turnaround is going to be overnight, but give it 30 days. I think you will see things improving once you implement some of the things that I shared with you on a weak hive. So hopefully the trick is not to let any of your hives get weak. Inspecting your hive every 2 weeks, making sure you got a good laying queen and resources is really going to change how successful that hive is going to be. Keep an eye on it. Yeah, don't relax too much. Hey, Sherry, thank you. 2 supers extracted on Tuesday. New beak. Oh, wow. And so that's excellent, Sherry. 2 supers. Wow, you must live in a very, very resourceful area with a lot of good plant life there, because a new beekeeper, that new hive making 2 supers, that sounds pretty impressive to me. All right, let's get into some questions tonight. See what you guys have on your mind for questions. Okay, hey Ross, member for 2 months now. Thanks for being a member of my YouTube channel here. Thinking of adding a honey super soon, all with undrawn frames, not looking to take any honey this year, still feed them. I would say yes. Feed them until they start to draw some of that wax out. Maybe give them a week or so, and then you can stop feeding them. But if you're not going to take that honey for yourself, you're going to leave it on for them. It never bothers me to go ahead and feed them with that honey super. Just remember, in the future, you know, if you ever do turn things around, you can still have some stored sugar water in there. It's not bad for you. It won't hurt you. It's just not authentic, genuine, raw honey. Good question. I see what you're dealing with there. I've wondered that myself sometimes. Hey, David, I have 2 hives with 2 deep boxes on. One hive has started drawing comb in the second brood box, but the other hive has not started. Is there anything I can do to help them? I am feeding. Okay, wax the frames. Have you added wax to your frames? Maybe I think you have if you've watched my videos. But yeah, adding more wax to the undrawn foundation can help a lot. Otherwise, it may be some of the things that I just talked about. It could be that they're suffering from just don't have the right 12 to 17 day old bees yet to actually produce wax. And so by feeding them, you are going to give them an advantage to produce more of that wax. 6 to 8 pounds of of them eating honey or nectar is going to turn into 1 pound of wax. So they do have to metabolize a lot of their incoming food. That's right. Thanks, Angela, for your super sticker tonight. Appreciate you guys donating for the live stream tonight. All the information that I'm sharing tonight, of course, is free. And I do thank you all for supporting the cause tonight. If you don't want to make a donation here on YouTube, you can always go to our website at honeybeesonline.com. It's an easier way to make a donation from our website if that works better for you there rather than doing it here. Hey, George, I'm a second-year beekeeper. When do I harvest honey? Easy question, when it's all capped over. There's some capped over supers not too far from me, right over there. But anyway, when you have those, thank you, Sally. Yeah, thank you for helping all of us. Appreciate your kind donation tonight, Sally. Very, very kind of you. But yeah, you're going to have to look at your frames and see that they're capped over 80 to 90%. And that means that they have wax cappings on those honey supers. That tells you the bees have put the lid on the canning jars and stored it. And that means you can harvest it. So if we don't go by dates, we don't go by a calendar, we go by what that honey super frame looks like. Is it capped over? Once it's capped over, it's yours for the taking. Good question. I understand that can be challenging. Freedom Apiaries, Pat, first-year beekeeper in East Tennessee. I'm going to be in West Tennessee this weekend. Feeding to help draw comb and raise brood. Bees backfilling, leaving no room for queen, no flow. Can I not feed for a week for them to use the resources to make room for the queen? That is a dilemma. Don't have a flow in Eastern Tennessee this time of the year. That's not good. But yeah, I think sometimes the bees do go crazy taking all that resource and start jamming it into the cells and may not give the queen room to lay. So if that's the case, sometimes you can take a frame out and spin it, shake it, whatever it needs to do to get some of that out of there, and see if you can get the queen to do that. Now, in my case, what I would do sometimes, Pat, I go into my storage room where I have a lot of empty drawn out frames. I'll just grab some drawn out comb and put it in there and see if I can get the queen to take advantage of that undrawn comb before they have a chance to fill it up again. That's a good question. Yeah, I see what you're dealing with. Hello, Gene. How are you doing? I used to have a friend named Gene. We called him Gino. Would you consider a weak hive after a swarm? I wouldn't say weak. To me, a weak hive means that it needs help, that it's so weak that, it's going to be tough for it to make it on its own. I think a swarm is not really weak at all. They are charged up and they're just raring to go. They will just draw comb out like nobody's business, and they will expand so rapidly. So I don't really call a swarm a weak hive. It's just a small, strong hive. There you go. Nailed it. I like that. Oh, yeah. Good question. David here in North Dakota, the University of Minnesota has recommended 3 deeps to get our bees through. I must have something wrong there. Through tough winters. I have 3 10-frame deeps that are full. Where would I place a green drone frame? Okay. Yeah, okay. Always use what's easiest for you. So green drone comb, we actually talk about that in a lot of my videos. For those of you that are here tonight and you've never heard of green drone comb, I've got one in a box here. This is what it looks like. And we do use these to trap mites in it. It's drone. And you might have heard some recent studies showing that mites are attracted more to young drones. In this case, though, put it in the top deep so you can gain quick access to it. And that way you just take your lid off or a super off. You don't have to go all the way down to the bottom deep. That's pretty labor intense. Try to keep that green drone comb at the top. Absolutely. Hey, Rich, we are blasting through these questions. I know a lot of you have questions, and I like to dedicate a big part of my live stream to answering your questions. So we got into the questions pretty early, and I'm glad of that, because I know sometimes you guys don't get your questions answered. So I'm doing my part, trying as hard as I can, okay? All right, Rich. Hi, first year. Should I take entrance reducer off in this very hot weather? I have a screen bottom board and vent slots in the top cover. Absolutely. If you're not in a robbing season, and that's usually when there's a dearth or late in the summer, early fall, if you're not experiencing any kind of potential robbing scenarios, take that entrance reducer off. It is going to give the bees a more ability to pull and push air and for them to have access when they start bearding out front. Yeah, I'd take that off for sure. I rarely have entrance reducers on this time of the year. Jordan, I recently caught a swarm probably 500 feet from my bee yard. Should I close them up at night and move them to the yard, or should I take them to a totally different location and then move them back to the bee yard? Okay. I have had very good luck, Jordan. I just simply grab them, put them in their, where I'm going to have them forever. I'll do it the same day or a day later. It seems not to really matter, So I don't think you're in trouble for doing it kind of quickly here. Just get it set, if that answers your question. Moving them at night is fine. Yeah. Not bad at all. My queen got in. Hi, Jonathan. My queen got into the super where I was doing comb hunting. It's all drone size and filled them with eggs. What's the best way to get rid of the eggs? If I put it in the freezer, would it kill them? Okay, I got an answer for that, right? Got a good answer. Best way to get rid of those eggs? Let them hatch. Yeah, that happens to me sometimes, and I just let them hatch. And that way, as soon as they hatch, they're out of there. They're back into putting honey in there. Now, if that's the case, hey, thanks, Ross, for your super sticker. Here's the deal with that. Listen up, everybody. If you let those eggs mature and become adult bees, they leave behind a cocoon, which is no big deal. It becomes a brood frame, sort of, but you can't really tell a tremendous difference unless you start wanting to melt the wax down. I would never recommend using melting wax out of the brood frames because of those cocoons. It looks kind of junky. But if you have to freeze that frame to kill the eggs, that would work actually. And it would kill those eggs. And then if you put it back in the hive, thanks, Brian. Appreciate your donation, Ide. If you put it back in the hive with dead eggs in it, the bees are going to clean those eggs out. But please take care of that queen. You might want to put a queen excluder there. That would work. I've never thought about doing that, but that would work. Hey, Jen, got a weak hive, didn't have comb built out on all 5 frames. The small hive beetles came with the nuke. Bees didn't build out comb regardless that I was feeding them. How do you clean up the frames? Let's see, what made the frames not clean? They didn't draw them out. Small hive beetle came with the nuke. Clean up the frames. Are you saying they slime? The small hive beetles slime the frames? If the frames are, not in their best of shape and you need to clean them and you don't have to get rid of comb, you can use a pressure washer, blast off. You can go to the car wash, if you don't have a pressure washer. And if they're plastic foundation, you can clean them off, re-wax them. That's probably the best way you're going to do if you're trying to get the slime off from small hive beetle. Just blast it, re-wax it. Yep. All right. What causes the shotgun-looking patterns in brood? I would say, let's see if I can think on my feet here. 3 things. Let's go with 3 things. I may add more, and I may not get 3, but I'll start with 3. Obviously, shotgun and brood pattern could be that the queen is failing, and so she's not laying well anymore. That's the primary thing we're concerned about. And that could go along with maybe there's inbreeding and she's laying, bees they're inbred, the drones and such. And so that could be the queen issue. Second thing that I've seen sometimes is it could be a disease. We have to know all diseases as a certified master beekeeper. We have to study images and such. And a long time ago here, I had European foul brood many years ago, over a decade ago. That causes that kind of spotty brood pattern, stuff like that. And the third thing is sometimes what can happen is they can start emerging haphazardly. And so you can have some of those bees emerging in different spots ahead of the other ones. It's a funny laying pattern. This some are emerging and then they may come back and fill that with honey. and leave that spot where the queen can't lay again. But normally we all jump to the conclusion that, I blame the queen not laying well, and I need a new queen. That's a good question. Upstairs handy solutions. Well, let's see, upstate. Oh, I'm sorry, upstate. What does that say below there? It's too small. Handy solutions. Okay. Do swarms fare better than commercialized hives? I hear that question a lot. Commercialized hives versus a swarm. I think some people I've heard it's, I don't know if this is what you're saying or not, but I've heard some people kind of say that queens that are produced by commercial beekeepers or bees that are produced by commercial beekeepers are not good bees, and the bees that you find in the forests and feral colonies and swarms, those are the better bees. They're all better. They're going to do better. I don't find that to be the case. I mean, to me, a bee is a bee, whether the owner is a commercial beekeeper or whether the owner is somebody that lives out in the woods and called a swarm. Get this, some swarms are nothing more than swarms out of commercial boxes. Commercial beekeepers have swarms and they fly and land in a tree. I think it's funny when people say I call it a swarm because I don't like, getting commercialized bees. Well, most of them are from beekeepers. I mean, I've worked with commercial beekeepers before, and the swarms are incredible. 10, 20, 30 swarms a day in the season out of a couple of thousand colonies. They're just hanging on trees. They're going everywhere. So let's don't draw a hard line in the sand. Honeybees are honeybees. Apis mellifera is Apis mellifera. And so most of the time, I don't know if it makes a big difference. You never know what the origin of a swarm is, by the way. Hey, Nikki, if a colony is in the process of requeening and you happen to see a virgin while inspecting, would you destroy the rest of the existing queen cells or let the bees do what they want? Easy answer for me, let the bees do what they want. That comes from almost 30 years of beekeeping experience and me making that mistake. And so I just think, let them do what they want to. Sorry to interrupt you. I didn't see anything. Carry on. Do what you have to do. I'm going to let them do it. I'm considering putting ice packs on top of my hive during the upper 90s this weekend. Advisable. Junebug. You know what? I would say, I don't know if I want to advise you to do it or not to do it. I would advise you to experiment, see how it goes, see if it makes a difference. Now, I have made videos where I've done that, and I put thermometers in there and monitored it. No matter how cold I made the top of the hive in the summertime with ice up there, they kept it about 92 degrees. They did not, even though I had fans blowing the cold air down onto the brood area, they ramped up their energy to make it 92 degrees. And so it didn't really seem, maybe it was not as hard for them to cool it. That part I can't really evaluate. Try it and see what you think. Yeah. Andy, thanks for all the answers. Can one assume if lots of bees are returning with no pollen, they're bringing nectar or water back other than seeing it in the frames? Can you tell? No, you really can't tell. You could catch a returning forager, and like I've done sometimes is I've brought them into the dissecting microscope, and I've dissected out the honey crop and then tried to determine what was in there, but that's all hard to do. So no, you really can't tell other than just, I think your assumption is right though. If it's blazing hot outside and the bees, you can tell they're fanning at the entrance and all, they're bringing some water in, that's for sure. And it could be mostly water. MF's World. Can you put two queens with a couple of supers and an excluder between them to make a super hive? Yeah. As long as you keep your queens where they can't touch, that's the key. A queen excluder, I think you're going to space it out with maybe a super between them or something. Some people think you can just exclude the two queens with a queen excluder. Now they'll grab each other and sting through that. You got to have at least an inch probably, so they can't, curl up and try to kill the other. But yeah, you could try that. That's going to be a back-breaking hive for you to work. That's for sure. Timothy, my hive has killed two queens. I've tried introducing, no queens yet. Any tips? That's so frustrating. That's why when I did an inspection last week with Reef and we saw a queen that had a 75% brood viability, laying ability, and we weren't real proud of it. We needed the brood. And sometimes when you try to start changing the queen, adding a new one, you can't get the new one started. They keep killing her. It's just like a nightmare. So you hate to kill what's working, even though it's not working the best you want it to. So in your case, I would say you might want to try those special cages that they make where you put the queen in a cage, a large frame size cage, or a frame size that holds the queen cage for a little bit. Have you tried actually putting the queen cage in there without opening up the plug or removing the plug from the candy and let them see if they could get used to her for a while? Maybe 4 or 5 days, and then take the cap off. If you haven't tried that, that would be a real winner, I think, too. But that is frustrating. And I've seen so many beekeepers, and I think I've experienced it. I'm sure I have. What are you going to do? It's just a tough one. The only way to do it is keep trying. They'll finally accept one. It just takes forever. Roy Boys Bee tonight. How do you keep your 1-to-1 sugar water from getting moldy? Now, Randy Oliver, scientific beekeeper, has done studies on this, and I read that. It might have been a study way back in 2010. I don't know. It's maybe before that. But he either experimented or quoted beekeepers, like commercial beekeepers or whoever, that actually add bleach or chlorine to the sugar water. And on his website, it's hard to find stuff. Maybe you can type a search, but he told you how much to add to that sugar water. So by putting that chemical in there of bleach, it's not going to allow that to grow. And I think within 24 hours, it seems to dissipate anyway. Otherwise, just make enough. If you don't want to use that chemical in there, make enough so that they're only going to they're going to consume it before it can go bad. And that's probably the best trick to do it. Yeah. Cut it down pretty small. Hey, John, I have a deep that is double 4 frame nukes with 4 medium honey supers already full. We'll be adding a 5th. Do I have to worry about swarming in the bottom deep? The swarming can happen because they're either overcrowded or it's a season to reproduce. So in your case, you're worried about, you may be out of the swarm season. They just may be overcrowded and they want to, they just want to get out of there because they're overcrowded. Thanks, Mark, for your super sticker. Yeah, you should be worried about swarming if they're overcrowded. And the way that I deal with that, and I would probably suggest to you, it sounds like you have more than one hive, maybe, I hope you do, then you can pull out some of those frames. I did that yesterday. I had some hives that were just jam-packed and I didn't want to add more boxes to them, but I was afraid that they were going to be too jam-packed. I got some acorn frames and foundation undrawn and pulled out some frames out of 4 or 5 hives and made another hive over there. Yeah. And then put the acorn frames where I pulled those out, gave those bees something to pull out. So manipulation of frames is going to help you a lot. Hey, David, what's your thoughts on single brood chambers? I'm in Ontario, Canada. I talked to a lot of people on my ham radio up in Canada a lot. I've answered this question on my live stream before. I always like to quote Dr. Tom Seeley in his book, Democracy of Honeybees, where he gives the volume, the size of, the size that bees like to be, and they like to be big. They like to be big. And if you ever watch people take and remove bees, natural hives from trees or wherever they can have room to do what they want to, they're big. They're not in a single deep. They're big. I've removed a lot of hives from businesses and everything, houses and all. They're gigantic. Bees like to be really huge. You can get by in a single, but they like to be bigger than that. Oh, thanks for your membership there. Member for 1 month, it says. Okay, great. Appreciate you being there. Absolutely. What's the pros and cons of foundationless frames? Well, that camp, the people, I was that way. That's all we had when I started. Oh, wait a minute. You're thinking about foundationless. So you're thinking about not having any foundation at all. Okay, gotcha. I was thinking of maybe wax foundation. Here's the deal with that. You put 10 frames in there. You don't know whether they're going to go the same direction the frames are going or the other direction where you can't pull a frame up because they built the comb crossways. It's a little tricky. A lot of people use starter strips on top of those frames to help them kind of go in that direction. But talk about wonky comb and strange directions. If you use foundationless frames, the bees can actually, instead of drawing it nice and straight down, they kind of curve it and kind of do funny things with it. I've done plenty of those myself, and it hasn't always gone well. I do it this way. Every other one I use foundationless and let them draw. And if I'm making comb honey, I don't buy all the comb specialized boxes and all. I put every other one just foundationless and let them draw me comb honey between the ones with foundation. That way they can't draw weird stuff. They adhere to that pattern. Yep. Jeep Creek. I used to have Jeeps. I love Jeeps. Thanks for being a member of my YouTube channel. Appreciate that a lot. Enjoy that Jeep. Always give another Jeep guy a wave too. Hey, Mark, how are you doing? Recently, Hive a swarm. After a week, no queen. Added an uncapped swarm cell attached to a frame of capped brood and nurse bees. Is a developing queen's pheromone enough to suppress laying workers? Probably not, but I think in this case, they're going to hang on a little bit. And, you got to be queenless and broodless for 21 days roughly before you're going to have laying workers. Not much you can do there. If you have more than one hive, you can move over a frame of open brood. That gets some pheromones to suppress those laying workers or help suppress it longer. So you might consider that, Mark, if you do have more than one hive. Yep. Always helps a swarm too. Absolutely. Man, we are buzzing through these questions, aren't we? That's awesome. I'm going to watch my clock here. Lonnie, hey, with the extreme heat, should you continue with hive inspections, or does this cause stress to the hive that could have a negative impact? Yesterday I was doing some inspections, and I have an eye to see water droplets on the brood, the capped brood, the pupae, and I can see water droplets on there. Really don't think it's going to hurt anything. If anything, it seems to me to kind of help out a little bit, maybe, because it lets that hot, stale air get out of there. I can't really see it being a negative impact. If it's really hot outside, the bees are doing their thing anyway. I think we're just more worried about the cold. I don't think so. All right. Well, look, on the 4th of July, friends, we're going to have our online classes 63% off. We've never done that before. It's a July 4th through the 7th weekend. We have in the past offered a discount on the 4th of July just to celebrate what's going on in people's lives, freedom here in the U.S. But see if any of you can guess why we are actually picked the number of 63%. That it is strategy behind why we chose 63%. It has to do with the 4th of July, kind of. So you'll have to be thinking about that one. Yeah. So mark your calendars to take advantage of our online courses. That's going to be a big help for you. All right. Hey, thanks, Brian, for that super sticker. All of you that have been making donations tonight, I really do appreciate it a lot. Let me show you something. Okay, let's do this tonight. Hang on. Things are going to be moving around a little bit. Let me get adjusted here. All right. It's time for, wow, look at that. Spin to win tonight. Oh my gosh. We got some new categories that a lot of you recommended that we add to spin the wheel. It's going to be fun tonight to do some of this. And we'll see how things go with where the wheel lands on. Now, if you land on the Beak Squad stickers, we'll have to do a drawing. And if we do have a drawing, it's going to be one of our tumblers. These are called tumblers. There's kind of like a water bottle, and I've autographed them for you. So if you want to autograph tumbler, then you have to actually win. You have to land on one of these, and then we'll do our traditional drawing from the other spin the wheel within the software. But anyway, if it lands here, I'm going to tell you something embarrassing that happened to me. I got bee facts. I got crazy bee stories. You could actually win a 30-minute Zoom meeting with me, private Zoom session with me. Again, that's going to be spin software too. So Robbie, you'll have to probably do that if we land there. Bees in the news and a safety tip in beekeeping. Okay. So let's give it a spin, see where we land. All right. Spin to win. It's not really winning, but it's something different. And of course, it didn't land anywhere. All right, let's do it again. It did that last week. I think this thing is rigged. What's going on here? And it always lands there. Next time, we're going to take the closest one to it if it does it again. Okay, we'll do the closest one right here. Crazy bee story. Oh no, crazy bee story. All right, I'll tell you my crazy bee story. Ready? So we had some bees that were pollinating a pumpkin patch. And so what happened was I was kind of negligent and checking on the bees. But anyway, I was in the area. It's pretty far from here, 40 miles away. And so we had an old F-150 truck, barely ran. It was rough. We had a big bench across the front, didn't have seats, a big bench if you had one of them old trucks. Christian was just a baby in a car seat in the middle between me and Sherry. So we drove to this pumpkin patch. I was actually working some other hives in that area of mine. And then I went to the pumpkin patch because I wanted to take some supers off. But the last yard I was at, I was running low on smoker fuel. And I didn't really have a good way. I don't know. I neglected to really cover up my smoker. So I had to drive about 10 miles south of there. Meanwhile, my smoker just sat in the back of the truck and burned out. Well, I got to the pumpkin patch and I found a hive that, I had to take that super off because I wanted it and it was too full. And I thought, how bad can that be? I don't have any smoker fuel, but I can just go over there. Yeah, I'm just going to take the super off, put it back in the truck, kind of maybe just take off and see what happens. Well, I cracked the lid open and those bees came after me like crazy. Now, I think I had a hat and a veil on. I didn't have a suit or anything. So I didn't know what to do. I didn't have a smoker to calm them and they were just eating me up. So I decided to run back and get in the truck, which wasn't but, from here to 20 feet away. So I ran over to the truck and I forgot this old truck had it was weird, but I couldn't open the door. It was just, I think you had to open it from the inside or something. So I ran over to Sherry's side and there was no place to get in because she was sitting there and Christian was in the middle. So then the bees were just pounding me. So I ran back to the other side and I tried to open it. I was like, Sherry, you're going to have to lean over and open that door. All I could do is just run around that truck. It's crazy, but I was just trying to outrun those bees. Oh my gosh, they were stinging me so bad. Somehow Sherry finally managed to lean over there and open that door. But I bet I ran around that truck probably 20 times, just kind of slapping at bees and trying to get them off of me. And that was crazy and that was rough. That was good. I'm glad it didn't fall on the embarrassing one because I don't want to tell my embarrassing story. You want me to do another one, Sherry? Spin a win? Do it again? Sherry said go for it. All right, we'll see. I'll give it a small spin. We're going to take the one in the spin direction if it falls in the blank. Oh, it fell in the blank. Oh, we have a giveaway. All right. Well, that worked. That worked out well for you guys. So what you're going to have to do, I forgot what the word is. I think it's tumbler. Hashtag tumbler in the comments, guys, and you could win this tumbler. Now, to guarantee that we can ship you this tumbler, it's going to be better that you live in one of the 48, what do they call that? Constituent states or something like that. One of the lower 48 states. If you live way far away, we'll try, but if it's going to cost $6,000 to ship you this, it ain't going to happen. I'm sorry. I'll just be honest with you, unless you want to pay the shipping. But we'll pay the shipping here in the U.S. But hopefully some of you will win this tumbler. I did autograph it. If that means anything, if you don't like me or my autograph, take some alcohol and rub that off. I get it. But anyway, you can try for the tumbler. One thing about these tumblers that I got to say, they are insane how much they will keep something cold or hot. What's the deal with that? What is this made of? How come we haven't made a beehive out of this kind of material? This is what a beehive should be made out of. You put something cold in here, stays cold. It just, the heat makes no difference at all. You can leave it out there. I've left ice in here. Next day, there's still ice in there. Seriously, some of you need to make a beehive out of this. Yeah, that's great. All right, well, there you go. We'll leave a hashtag Tumblr, and we'll see who will win tonight. Hey, Charlie, good to see you. Appreciate you always leaving some comments for me in my YouTube channel. I appreciate that a lot. All right, we got Tumblr there. We got some numbers coming up of you guys trying. So we'll take another few seconds to get your last minute name in there. Hashtag Tumblr will give you a chance to win this tumbler, and you'll see how crazy it is and how wonderful it keeps your drink cold or hot or whatever you want it to do. All right, let's go ahead and spin it. Thanks, EL, for your donation tonight. Did we freeze? It's not spinning for me. Oh, there it goes. Slow. Oh, Eric. All right. Eric Holbrook, you're the winner tonight. You won the tumbler. Email us within 24 hours at longlanehoneybees@gmail.com. Send over your mailing address. We'll get that sent over to you as soon as we can. Always give us a couple of days. A few times people have won this, and at 10 o'clock at night after the live stream, they're wondering why they haven't received it yet. Okay, we're not that fast. You gotta give us a chance to recover from a live stream and pull it together and ship it to you. So don't be too quick on the draw there. This isn't Amazon. All right, I appreciate that a lot. You guys are great tonight. All right, we got some more. I think did I take care of all the upcoming announcements that I needed to make, I think? All right, well, if you do have other announcements, or I'm sorry, if you do have other things you want to put on here, that would be fun. Make suggestions and we'll add them to the spin the wheel. It'd be fun for you guys to do. Just, you can add it in there, and things that might interest you in the future. Robin, thank you for being a part of my YouTube membership. I have several ways for those of you that might want to support the efforts that I put into educating people on YouTube. I do have a YouTube membership, and that is through YouTube. In other words, you're watching a video, it says join at the bottom, and you can click on that. There's 2 levels, a Nectar Novice and Ambassador, a Beak Squad Ambassador. I think it's like $6.99 or $9.99 a month. You don't really get anything in return. It's just your way of supporting me. However, occasionally I do have a live stream just for the membership. So occasionally we do get together, more of a smaller setting, and we do spend about an hour on a Sunday afternoon. So if you like that, I'll always announce when those are coming up. So if you want to be a part of that, that'd be good. Appreciate that a lot. Thank you so much for your donation. Proud to be a member on your B Team 6. Well, I appreciate that a lot, and thank you for your donation. B Team 6 is a monthly mentorship coaching that I have had for, I think, 8 years now, where people can ask me beekeeping questions on the fly. They can be panicking in their bee yard and send me a picture and say, "What is going on, David?" And I'm like, "That's normal, no sweat." Or "That's not good." So if you want to become a member of the B Team 6 team, you just drop by our website, honeybeesonline.com, and you'll see the coaching and the mentorship program there that you can be a part of. I always like helping you guys out a lot. All right, we got a few more minutes for a few more questions. If some of you are dying to get your question in there. Killer bees. Oh my, I still have a queen, but I have noticed a lot of queen cells on the bottom of the frames. Is this normal? Okay, everybody in the comment section, put down what's going on. You all know what the answer is. It's normal, but we don't like to see it. It's a normal swarm preparation. I think that's what's going on. Yeah, I think it sounds like they're getting ready to swarm. You still have your queen in there. If you can, cage her, hold her. If it's the one that you started with and she's marked and you can cage her, then they can't swarm. So you want to get a hold of her. That's going to save them from swarming. Meanwhile, you got to do what we said earlier. Split it, separate it out. Use some of those frames for others' hives to strengthen them out. First year here, have a screen bottom hive and a solid bottom hive. Is one better than the other? Also, how do you keep ants out? Okay, one is not better than the other per se. There are times when one is better than the other. If it's really hot outside, That screen bottom board does help airflow, keep them from bearding and such. Some people in the wintertime kind of are afraid of a screen bottom board. So a solid bottom board may be helpful in the wintertime to cut cold air from sweeping up into your hive. It's a personal preference. Ants, keeping ants out of your hive is best done by keeping the legs of your hive in some kind of a moat, like a pan of water where the ants can't cross over and get in there. You can also put cinnamon on double-sided sticky tape around the bottom deep that the ants don't want to cross that barrier. Thanks, Brian, for becoming a member of my YouTube channel. You guys are so generous and nice. I really do appreciate it. I got to be honest with you. When you guys support me, either with some kind words or seeing these donations, it tells me you appreciate what I do, and it makes me want to keep doing it. There are times when this is not easy, and I keep saying, how much longer can I do this? But then I see great support like this, and it inspires me. So I appreciate it. Your encouragement is very inspirational to me. So I want to thank you. I love you guys. Aaron, new beekeeper, started with a package 2 months ago. Have a 10-frame hive with how many frames should they have filled by now? Aaron, there's no way to answer that question. It depends on I guess the strength of your queen, how much she can lay. It depends on how many foragers they have. It depends on where you live, how much resources are in your area that they're bringing in, how healthy the bees are, how disease-free, mite-free they are. I wish that there was more cookie cutter, what am I trying to say? Cookbook recipe type science here, but there isn't. There's just no way to know that. I know it can be very challenging. Yeah. All right, let's take one more question and we'll wrap it up. Hey, Mark, how do you keep a 5/5 from overcrowded? I guess you mean a 5-frame nuke box over top of another one. I think you would make it 5/5/5. My mama didn't raise no dummy. If they're overcrowding on a 5x5, make it a 5x5x5. If a 5x5x5 is too crowded, make it a 5x5x5x5. All right, now I'm being silly, but I don't know. I guess that's what you're talking about. Hey, if you need to pull some frames out, spread them out and make another one. That's going to help you a lot as well. So don't worry about that. It doesn't really, it's not a right or wrong way to do it. Just use some, good old common sense, elbow grease. You can keep them from overcrowding. Hey, I want to give a special shout out tonight to Sherry and Jessica and Robbie. They did a fantastic job tonight making everything happen. I really do appreciate them, and it helps me focus more on you and helping you. I like teaching you. I like answering your questions. And without them propping me up with all the technical stuff, it'd be really harder for me. So thanks, Robbie and Sherry and Jessica. Love you guys and appreciate you so much. Everybody leave a comment thanking them. They're the unsung heroes of a live stream, that's for sure. So I appreciate you guys so much. But I want to say in closing, thank you all for being here tonight. I hope you'll take advantage of all the videos that I've made this week. I pumped out, I think maybe 4 or 5. I pumped out a lot of them. And they're good. They're helping you deal with hot weather. I evaluated a new queen marking kit. A lot of good videos that might be helpful for you guys in what you're doing. A lot of you said you're a first-time beekeeper. So this is going to be really good for you to watch my videos. Check out our podcast, Mysteries of Honeybee podcast. It's on all the major podcast platforms, Mysteries of Honeybees. Also, I'm going to be on a podcast on Monday. It's the one that I can't remember the name. I think it's called Today's Beekeeper something, with Jeff Ott. Remember that one? It's kind of like Kim Flodham used to be a part of that before he passed away. But anyway, it'll be published on Monday, so try to check that out. I'll try to give you guys more information about that. And I'm going to be speaking again this Saturday. Remember, Effingham, Illinois State Beekeepers Association. I hope you can get a ticket, see me there. It'd be a lot of fun. And but I want to tell you, I appreciate you guys. Love you all so much. It's just been a pleasure tonight being with you guys. And I can't thank you enough for being a part of the YouTube channel. Thank you for all your donations, your support, your kind words. Means the world. We'll see you next time.